but it was that they named individuals who sponsored the violence, who bought the pangas, the machetes to carry out the killings, who hired the minibuses to transport the thugs, to set up the roadblocks, to carry out the post-election violence. And when you understand that it was organised by individuals who rallied people together, who actively promoted this, you start to understand that there was nothing inherent in tribalism. There was nothing inherent in the kind of conflict that we saw. There was no reason for the tribes to fight. But that takes good journalism, it takes solid inquiry, it takes time, it takes professionalism, and it takes, frankly, money. And that's the key element. If there's one message that I want to leave with you, it's that we need to find a way of using the viral nature of the internet, of the ICTs for their own good. We need to make sure that journalism isn't lost in the process. That everyone who has access, everyone who gets on Twitter, everyone who gets on Facebook, fundamentally has to be a journalist because they're publishing information. And they must accept, they must stand by those journalistic principles of honesty, integrity, balance, fairness, accuracy.
Thank you. Peter, just on that note, just briefly, how is the BBC in Kenya trying to deal with this unmoderated, viral use of media messaging? How does it make you feel, and what are you doing on the ground?
Well, we're old school media, as you know. I'm a broadcaster, a radio, television correspondent, and we write for the internet as well. But increasingly, the only way you can do it, you can't beat them, you can't shut down those elements, and you can't do it by staying with old school media. Increasingly, the BBC is starting to understand that you've got to get on, you've got to be a part of that process. You've got to get your message out through Twitter, through Facebook. It's not easy, and a lot of us, particularly those of us that were brought up in the old industry, in the old media world, it's finding it difficult to keep up with the kinds of changes. But I think that's one of the few ways that we can do it. It doesn't feel very satisfactory, to be honest with you. It feels as though we've got a feet in each pool, and neither feet is doing a particularly good job of taking us forward. So that's really the way it's working. But as I said, I think this is one of those things that we still need to work on.
Thank you, Peter. Swati, I'd love to hear your perspective and your experience of media and conflict, and I believe you've got some images as well to share with us.
Thank you, Simon. I would say, yes, I'm going to show you some images, but what I would like to also share is the kind of work which I'm doing is that I work for an organization, One World, and we have portals, and the focus of the portals is basically to voice stories and bring out stories which are generally not covered by mainstream media. So, with a special focus on human rights. I have been working in this organization for the last 2 years, and so these images are basically stories that we have covered in our course of work. I think also, like as Peter said, all the points what I'm going to try and talk about is more or less the same things about the importance about redefining news and about the linkages to development. Can we have...
How does it make you feel when you see the media fueling conflict or reducing conflict? What's your perspective in terms of the role of the media?
Here I would say is, especially last year, I am from India, and there are a lot of, I would say, situations that happened last year. One was basically a lot of persecution of Muslim youth by the Indian police force. That was a major thing. I think happened through a long spell. I also went and attended one of those a tribunal in which all the people, the victims, young boys, were just picked up by the police and tortured, and where they came and gave their testimonies, and the recommendations were put across to the Human Rights Commission. But I think what the media is negating its role is in terms of, I would take the quote what I think Amira has, that's the Israeli journalist, is that monitoring the centers of power. I think that is what is missing a lot in mainstream media. I think that's a point which needs to be highlighted. Can I have the first image, please? This is Janadesh. It was a march which happened in 2007. And 25,000 people walked from Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh to the national capital. It was a demand for land by the poor, the landless people. And here, that's why I said it is, for me, this is a concept of conflict, because when you're talking about conflict and you're talking about peace, I mean, there can be no peace without peace on an empty stomach. So this is, the next image is also about generation. And if I come to the third image, so basically I'm talking about development. This is the global Stand Up Take Action campaign, which is done by the UN Millennium Campaign every year. And here the issue is about the price rise, which I think had a major impact on the poor because of the economic crisis last year. And the next image. So when you're talking about media watch, as a watchdog, here the one is, of course, the gay campaign, which was of this year in India. And the other is images, I'm sorry, the images are a little dark. It's a protest that was happening in the capital against the killings of Christians, which happened in the eastern Indian state Orissa last year. It was a major incident. So these are those images. And the last image is, which I have actually taken from the BBC site. It's one of my favorite images. It's about in Kashmir, where in a public protest, the people are actually using the mobile. And even when there was a particular incident in which there was a land row over a shrine, and it erupted into a kind of freedom movement call, and people were right out on the streets, and they were taking it and putting it up on the internet. So here again, when I'm talking about what, like as Peter said, the viral nature of the internet, but what is important, I feel, is about you know, the place where people, opinions and facts are actually blurring. I think where we need to, I think media needs to be more responsible and to be more sensitive to the nuances of power equations that are breeding conflict. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, we have this issue about moderation, and Swati's brought in the very important concept of citizen journalism and social media and the impact that that is having. And I'd like us to pick that up a little bit later. But first, should the media even be involved? Does the media have a responsibility in reducing conflict? Malcolm X said that the media is the most powerful entity on earth. It has the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. So if the media controls the minds of the masses, that was in the 1960s. Now we're in the Twitter age. What responsibility does the media have, if any, to reduce conflict? Is it there as a social service? Is it there to reflect? Or is it there to lead? Anyone who'd like to respond to that, please.
I'll have a go at this one. I think that fundamentally the media's job is the same as it always has. You cannot accept a responsibility to resolve conflicts. You can't accept a responsibility to mediate conflicts or manage conflicts. We each have a job to do. The main job of the media is old-fashioned, and I think this is also one of the points we mustn't forget. Despite all these tools, they are just that, they're tools. The fundamental thing we're talking about is very old-fashioned. We're talking about social networks that have always existed as long as people lived in a family and lived in villages.